Okay, a lot of parents used to worry about eating disorders with their teenagers, but this year there's a new and rather very unusual new thing to worry about. We're going to tell you about this thigh gap story coming up.
Yeah, it's getting a lot of news, that's for sure. Apparently, it's getting some girls to once again starve themselves into looking like what they see in the fashion mags.
You have a teenage daughter, a preteen daughter, even a younger girl. You definitely want to listen to this conversation because there is yet another dangerous trend out there that could change the way your daughter sees herself. It is called the thigh gap. Have you heard about this? You may have. It is the latest craze to sweep across social media, and it's fueling a really unrealistic and even dangerous goal for teenagers. A thigh gap is when thighs are so thin they don't touch when their feet are together. And now girls and young adults are going to extremes to have this thigh gap, diet and exercise to achieve this, and that can lead to an eating disorder. Listen.
That's a very serious psychological and medical illness that typically requires fairly intensive treatment. There, and a lot of the images that someone might see on some of these websites are Photoshopped.
Debra Beck is an expert in raising teenage girls, and you say this conversation about body image needs to start early, right? Good morning.
Absolutely. Thank you. It does. It needs to start, you know, with when they're 5. Yeah. Actually,
yeah.
You know, and the parents, especially the mothers, need to be really careful about how they talk about their own bodies. Mm-hmm. I had a client say, my daughter is, actually she's 5 and she said her thighs were fat today.
Really?
And I'm like, 5?
Oh man.
So you do have to start early.
Is this pretty much what girls go through no matter how they're raised? I mean, it's kind of what happens in school and things like that.
Some.
Yeah.
Some do. You know, it really does depend.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about this whole thigh gap. First of all, we got to point out that I think a thigh gap is your body has to be made a certain way to even have this happen.
Exactly. It's not realistic.
Yeah, it's not realistic. What was your thought when you heard about this the first time?
Well, it's just yet another, you know, body image issue, where it all stems from the self-esteem of young girls. Right. And so it's just another obsession of trying to get your body to look a certain way that isn't realistic. Right. I mean, you saw the pictures. That is not realistic. Yeah. On, you know.
Well, they've seen it on models and things like that, but again, it's the way your body is made and things like that. I'm sure you've heard it all when it comes to these body image issues, when it comes to young girls. What are some of the other things you've heard aside from this? This is pretty outrageous.
Well, you know, and this can lead to eating disorders as well because they're getting so thin, but it's just really wanting to be too thin for their body, right? You know, and then not eating properly.
Let's say you find out or you figure out that your young teenage daughter is trying to achieve this. How do you go about talking to them about it and saying it's unobtainable? Because sometimes, you know, it doesn't sink in what mom or dad are saying.
No, it really doesn't. And I think that's why it's so important to start early and be careful about how you speak about your body and letting your daughters know that this is a vehicle that gets us around. It doesn't need to look beautiful, it just needs to be healthy. It doesn't need to look a certain way. Right. And to teach them that there are going to be certain trends and things that they're going to see and that they don't need to buy into the media.
Right. For the parents who are already there, I can imagine it's really tough, but for those of us who have youngsters who are going, I don't even want my daughter to go there. And you said 5 years old. How do you have that conversation at that age?
Well, I think that at that age, you have to be really, really careful about how you speak about your body. And with the 5-year-old that said her thighs were fat, I asked the mother, have you ever said that? And she just, it was kind of like she looked at me and she's like, oh my gosh, yes, I have.
The guilty's clear.
Yes,
yes. So you just kind of, you be very deliberate about your message. Be basically very deliberate about what you're saying about yourself.
Yes,
that's what
and
it sounds like.
instill self-esteem. And self-esteem is about, you know, who we really are. It doesn't necessarily have to be about the way our body looks. So,
Debra Beck, thank you so much for your insight this morning. We're gonna